They now say, I got $30,000 to spend on growth hormone this year, and they take it. What kind of muscle gains do you think they're going to experience in that year? I've often said that growth hormone's the most overrated PD that's out there, that it's not nearly as beneficial as something like testosterone. What is your opinion on how effective growth hormone is in comparison to other PDs like testosterone?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to obviously compare it on like a gains basis to something like testosterone, it's incomparable. I mean, obviously testosterone is going to be a lot more effective. And for 99% of people, taking even 200 milligrams of testosterone or 300 milligrams is going to do a world more, for their strength, for their look, for everything than growth hormone would take. Obviously at my level, being, a top level professional bodybuilder, obviously, incorporating growth hormone becomes part of that. But I didn't even use growth hormone until after I was like a half decently successful pro. So, I get guys that are like 17, 18 coming to me and they're like, I'm thinking about doing my cycle and using GH. I'm like, man, for one, if the GH you're talking about is probably not actually GH. It's probably some bullshit peptides that some dude's selling you, or, if you're talking about real farm GH and you're at this age and you want to spend that money, there is a million other ways you can spend your money that are going to make you 100 times more gains. So do I think there's a place for it? Absolutely. Do I think that, when you're talking about 99% of the population, is it necessary? Not even remotely close now.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I've compared people I've coached, amateurs versus like, say, pros. And I'm like, you're wanting to take more than I would suggest to a pro to take, and you're 20 years of age and you haven't even done a show yet. And They think that you need to take growth hormone and testosterone at the highest of doses. I'm like, I haven't taken that much before. Me, and I'm a pro, but they want to do it.
Full transparency, Chris has won Olympias using no growth hormone. And that was like the thing he got accused of the most because of like his jawline and his like height and, structure. People were like, he must take 20 units of growth hormone. It's like, if you knew what Chris does, you would be so fucking disappointed in yourself. It would be ridiculous, So, I mean, obviously at my level, this is part of it. That's the reality. When you're talking about, elite level bodybuilding, an effect that it can have on your look or your fullness, or, maybe a small percentage to help lose body fat or things like this. Obviously, I'm going to take every little advantage I can get that I don't think is doing any detriment to my health. And growth hormone can be in there if it's in low dosages, and at a safe level. But for, 99% of people, it just makes absolutely no sense from a financial standpoint versus, cost benefit analysis. I don't put it in any of my programming unless someone is already using it and they have the disposable income, or they're an advanced level bodybuilder, right? So, I mean, it really doesn't make sense to me, or if you're like a 60-year-old lady with a shit ton of disposable income and you want to take, 1 or 2 IUs just, for your skin and your hair and to feel good, fucking give her, if that's not a problem for you financially. But, if you're a young bodybuilder looking to make as much gains as possible, forget the fucking growth hormone. It's so unnecessary. I've been 290 pounds lean in an off season using no growth hormone at all in my life. So to think that it's like a necessity to, to be big or to have good levels of muscularity, it is ridiculous,
And I think what it is people are always thinking whatever they're not taking is the reason they're not as good. They're thinking, well, look at Big Ramy. He must be on this and this and this. And the reason I'm not so good is because I'm not taking that. Then you start taking that and you don't get that look and you're like, well, shit, it's not that. Must be higher doses.
It's funny because this even extends into top tier bodybuilding, because this is the thing with like the Kuwait guys, the bodybuilders all here. It's like, okay, well, I have steroids and I have growth hormone. So it's the guys in Kuwait. They must have the good GH or IGF. They got the Increlix. That's what it is. I don't have that. They got that. That's why they're better than me. So it's always something. It's always something you don't have that someone else has, and that has to be the reason. And maybe in some capacity, sure, sometimes, but 99% of the time, it's just not. It's just either better genetic guys, they're training better, they're doing something different. I mean, it's just not everyone responds to the same things at the same time. And, it's not all men are created equally. I mean, it's just not the reality of things, right?
So let's take a really good 200-pound bodybuilder. Say, they're at the national level. They're almost pro. They're really top-notch, but they're not on growth hormone. They're taking everything, trend test, the whole thing, big doses. They now say, I got $30,000 to spend on growth hormone this year, and they take it. What kind of muscle gains do you think they're going to experience in that year, the full year on high doses?
Actual muscle gains from growth hormone, probably very, very minimal. I mean, I think, since I've used growth hormone, the actual amount of muscle I've put on, and you talk about 2 years, I mean, you're talking about like less than 2, 3, 4 pounds, like almost none. Obviously I've noticed there's a change in the look. And for me, a thing I notice the most is just, for me, I get flat very easily. It helps me maintain a little more fullness. But I mean, if you want to spend, $1,500, $2,000+ a month to get a little more fullness, I mean, fucking giver. I mean, when you weigh that to other things out there to, achieve that same thing, it's, unless you're talking about top tier bodybuilding, it really doesn't make sense to me, for a disposable income, if you got it and you want to do a little, I mean, sure. But for most people, it's just, it can be so much, like, even when we were doing the comparison, to like just a low dose of test, it's going to be a lot more, so yes, is there a change in the look that I've received from it? Sure. Is there a massive amount? Like, I think that's the thing. And people say growth hormone I'm going to put on. And I thought it before I'd use GH too. It's like, I'm going to take GH and I'm going to be 290 peeled on stage like Big Ramy. You think that's what it is. But it's very underwhelming. I can tell you that. Does it make a difference at my level in some capacity? Yes. Is it the end all be all? Absolutely fucking not. No.
Yeah, so it's not like we're saying it doesn't work. It does work. It does help a little bit. But it's like when I do these phone consults with people, and the people that usually call me, they're not poor. I charge a fair bit of money for phone, and they can afford these things. And I'll have to be on the phone and say, look, you're not going to gain the muscle you think. They're hoping to gain 10 and 20 pounds of muscle from growth hormone. I'm like, it's not happening. But they have the money, so they want to do it. But I have to sit there and try to discourage them. I'm like, hey, save your 20 grand and don't do it, because it's going to make next to no difference.
Yeah, no, I mean, at that level, I wouldn't encourage it at all. I mean, it's like, even me, like I said, I didn't even really consider it until I was talking about like winning pro shows and competing at the Olympia at the highest level, that's when I was like, okay, maybe this is something that I should incorporate or can incorporate. I have a little more income coming from bodybuilding. This is my career, maybe this is something I want to invest in some capacity. But yeah, I mean, everyone is very underwhelmed. And I think that's why most people will be like, I think my GH is fake. It's like, well, because they didn't gain 30 pounds of muscle. It's like, well, maybe your GH is real and you're just looking for something that doesn't exist, And I think that's largely the case in a lot of it, and sure, yeah, you might gain 10 pounds of water from it, if you put in a couple IUs, and then the second you stop using, you'll just lose that water. So it's not, actual tissue gain from growth hormone is not nearly the same as anabolic. It's not even close.
And speaking of PDs, there's different ones. What about SARMs? Do you believe in them? What is your personal opinion? Like, do they work like Ostarine, Rad 140, LGD, these types of things? Or even non-SARMs that people call SARMs, like MK677, growth hormone secretagogues, these types of things. Do you just think there's no place for this? Are they somewhat effective? Like, what's your whole take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't ever incorporate them in my programming. I mean, the SARMs, I think the SARMs, in my opinion, gained a lot of popularity because of their accessibility. And it was like the young guys that couldn't get real testosterone. So they went online, they ordered themselves some SARMs, and someone online told them that it was going to be, more effective or safer or something like this, which is, in my opinion, not the reality. I mean, there's way less science and way less evidence. I mean, what is more studied than taking testosterone? Nothing. Like, when you're talking about pharmaceutical drugs used every single day with tons of, historical data on it, nothing beats testosterone, So, for me, I don't really mess with them because I think there's a million other ways that you can do things safer and more effectively. So I don't use them in any of my programming, no.
Personally, I've used SARMs in the past, but I mean, right now I'm using HRT testosterone and not SARMs. So I think if anything, if I thought they were that good and I thought they were that effective and better, don't people think I would personally be using them? And I wouldn't bullshit. If I was using them, I would say it. A lot of people say, oh, you're probably taking this. And why wouldn't I say it? I mean, it would only help my channel if I start saying I added in Ostarine because it's amazing. It's going to get views. So I'm not saying it. So my personal opinion, testosterone's better than SARMs. Not telling people they should just go out and take testosterone, but given the choice, I mean, I'm thinking testosterone's better.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, with any of these things, I think it's dependent. I mean, if you're, a small bikini girl and, you like using something like an Ostarine instead of getting into Anavar or some things, maybe this is, maybe this is an option, but if you're talking about a male that's looking, for HRT just to feel better, gain a little more strength, these things, in my opinion, there's nothing safer and more effective than just using a low dose of testosterone.